Good evening. In critical condition, no progress whatsoever, in serious trouble. Just some of the ways that the National Health Service was described today after a damning report into the state of the NHS. Labour ordering a review of the service when it came to power, and that review has painted a picture of a service that is on its knees, with thousands of lives lost or put at risk because people cannot get the care they need. Today, Sir Keir Starmer accepted the challenge of fixing the NHS, but he insisted he will not keep throwing money at the problem, and the service must reform or die. Our health correspondent, Ashish Joshi, has this report.
The NHS can be saved. Keir Starmer's response to a damning report into the health service.
The NHS may be in a critical condition, but its vital signs are strong. And we need to have the courage to deliver long-term reform. Major surgery, not sticking plasters.
But on the same day, new data revealed this summer was the busiest ever for A&Es in England. The Prime Minister refused to be drawn on when patients would see improvements.
If you were to speak to one single patient who's been suffering in agony for so long, what would you say to him or her about how you're going to fix the NHS and make them better in the short term?
I accept the challenge to me, which is it's going to take a long time. It's going to be measured in years, not months. And we need to have something to say for someone who's ill now, which is getting the NHS back on its feet. But we can't duck the long-term change. Through the central bit.
The Prime Minister's speech followed the publication of an investigation by Lord Darzai, which found waiting lists and waiting times are surging, with A&E queues more than doubling in the past 15 years. Too much of the NHS budget being spent in hospitals and too little in communities. And the UK has higher cancer mortality rates than comparable countries.
Many of the problems identified by Lord Darzai in his report are already well known, but now they've been laid bare in a government report. It's up to Keir Starmer to tell us how he aims to fix the NHS. But today there was no detail. There was an overview of the 10-year plan and a promise to tackle waiting lists, but not much else.
So what are the appointments looking like now?
Moving care out of hospitals and into communities will only happen with the support from NHS staff in primary care, but they're already struggling with workloads.
It's a better model, it's what patients want, but it can only happen if we're given the resources and tools. So we need to have enough GPs working. We need to have other primary care staff. We need to have buildings that actually can accommodate us. I couldn't come into my own practice this morning because we didn't have the rooms.
The government also wants to focus more on preventing illness. Restrictions on advertising for junk food touted today as a new way to keep children healthier. But so too is improving access to care.
Stephen, do you want to come on through? Right.
Steve Can is a cancer survivor. Now he's having tests for numbness in his feet. Steve is typical of patients with more complex health needs.
Ringing up for an appointment is difficult because you end up in a queue. But I find if I turn up there at 5 to 8 in the morning, I always get an appointment with the doctor that I've seen for many years.
If you want to just rest your arm on here for me.
The scale of the challenge to transform the NHS and the lives of patients like Steve is huge. Too much time has already been lost.
And well, Ashish joins me now in the studio. And Ashish, what is new about this report? Because ultimately the headline is the NHS is broken. People at home are thinking, tell us something we don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. What's new is that this is a government-commissioned document. So West Streeting said to Lord Darzai, go out and bring back a report into the state of the NHS. Now, Lord Darzai had all this information anyway. There's no way that this was beginning of July, so the end of August, early September, we've got a comprehensive report into the state of the NHS. So this is all information which has been known. He might have had access. I was told by someone today that he had access to data that hasn't been published. But you're absolutely right. If you speak to anyone who has had any experience of the NHS, especially perhaps, say, A&E through the winter, or the parents of a child struggling with their mental health, or who I speak to a lot, nobody will tell you that CAMS, or the mental health service for young people and adolescents, is in a fit state. Anyone who has had any experience, even that patient just now, Steve Cann, he accepts that here in 2025, that he's got to, or 2024, he's got to get up and join a queue to make an appointment for a GP, which he may or may not see on that day. We've all come to accept that. We go to A&E, and if we're told to wait 8 to 10 hours, we accept it because we think this is the NHS. It can't cope with the numbers. It doesn't have enough staff, doesn't have enough resources. And this is free healthcare. This is how it's delivered. So it just becomes the norm. So you're right, Sarah Jane. There is nothing new in terms of headlines that cancer care is bad. We've known for years cancer care is in decline. We've known mental health services are struggling. But what's happened, all of this has been collected into an official document, a government commission report, landed on the Prime Minister's desk and said, there you go, do something about it. That's the difference.
And then the Prime Minister said, I will do something about it, give me 10 years. There are no quick fixes to the NHS. How many times have we discussed this on Sky News? We speak to so many experts. You, in your capacity as health correspondent, speak to so many people that say it is going to take time. But the reality of many people watching tonight is they haven't got 10 years. If they're an older person using the NHS or they're in the midst of their cancer journey, they can't wait 10 years for this to be fixed. And that is the harsh reality we're looking at.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. What needs to happen, there has to be a dual approach, right? These two things have to be in tandem. There has to be short-term fixes. This is September, so we're in autumn. In another month's time, we'll be into fall's season, elderly, frail people falling at home, going into hospital, having to wait in A&E. This is going to start happening in the next 5 to 6, 7 weeks, right? Those people want to be assured that when they go into hospital, not just those people, their families, their loved ones, everyone wants to be assured that when they go into A&E or go into a hospital, they'll be seen promptly and they get the quality of care that they deserve. So the government will have to put in short-term fixes. And they're talking about the 18-month wait. That's a good optic because then they can say, look, here you go, monthly data release. We've brought down waiting times. We are doing something now. And also, we are looking at the long-term future of the health service.
OK, Ashish, thank you very much. Ashish Joshi, who's been following this story closely all day here on Sky News. Well, of course, as we've been saying, the health service is all about people, isn't it? Those who work in the NHS and those it serves. And while the government needs to fix how the NHS treats patients, it also needs to do more to reduce the number of people coming through the doors by changing lifestyles and habits. Sky's Shingi Marike reports now from Bradford.
Today was another moment to rue the state of the NHS, with the Darzai report highlighting deep-rooted problems in the healthcare system. Many of those start in wider society, and are felt most in places like Bradford, one of the country's most deprived cities, where people's life expectancy is lower and health outcomes are worse. Here, people are frustrated.
They're all nice people, and I know they've a job to do, but I don't know, it seems to have gone downhill.
The problem is, unless you've got money to pay for your health, you're not going to get the services you need, and that isn't how it's supposed to be.
The Darzai report also suggests the health of the nation has deteriorated, calling Britain a society in distress. At this addiction centre, they see that firsthand.
It's kind of that circle of going back through, relapsing into drugs and then facing homelessness again, and then obviously living on the streets means that your health deteriorates.
Also in need of support are an ageing population, who often rely on the social care system that, like the NHS, is strained.
Reforming the NHS without reforming social care at the same time, it's like building a house without repairing the roof.
Beneath the talk of funding, agencies and systems are real people. Some of the residents' loved ones have been waiting months to see specialists, like 89-year-old Pam's husband, who has Parkinson's.
I'm very concerned because since June, his condition has suddenly deteriorated rapidly. He has trouble walking, trouble feeding himself, trouble speaking. And the man I knew is disintegrating before my eyes. You imagine how I'm feeling? I feel helpless. There's nothing I can do. The home have tried. They've tried to ring the consultant secretary, they've tried to ring the hospital, and they have tried. The GP has tried, and we're getting nowhere.
On the other side of a health system at breaking point are the communities and individuals who will suffer more as it struggles. Shingi Marik, Sky News, Bradford.
Well, the view from Bradford there today. Now, around a year ago, I spoke to Odette De Freitas very soon after the death of her son, Kevin. Now, Kevin died after waiting 6 weeks to see a GP. He was later diagnosed with liver cancer. And Odette joins us this evening. Odette, thank you so much for joining me. It's really good to see you again.
Hi,
I wonder what you made of today's headline, a report commissioned by this new government that says the NHS is broken. And I started the show tonight by saying, we already knew that, didn't we? And you know that as a family.
Exactly, yeah. And like you say, everybody has known this. Not just since COVID, you know, years and years before. It's been broken for a long time.
This report lays bare the state of the NHS after COVID, but makes it plain that it was in pretty bad state going into the pandemic because of austerity cuts. Now, it's worth reminding viewers of the conversation we had a year ago now. It was soon after you lost Kevin. He was 40.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't get a GP appointment. And again, I was talking to my health correspondent, Ashish Joshi, here just moments ago, saying this is a familiar picture, it's a familiar story to so many families in the UK, desperately trying to get a GP appointment, getting on the phone at 8 o'clock in the morning. Remind us of Kevin's story.
He started feeling unwell in the April of last year, wasn't able to eat or keep food down. Now, Kevin had Crohn's, so he tried to get a doctor's appointment by phoning up every day at 8 o'clock, couldn't get through. He basically went to the walk-in centre. At the walk-in centre, they said, oh, you need to speak to your IBS nurse, who he phoned the nurse. She made him an appointment for December. Now he gradually got worse and worse over the next 6 weeks. He was phoning the GP every day. He just could not get an appointment. Eventually, he walked to the doctor's at 7 in the morning. Now, by now, he's eaten no food for 6 weeks, and he sat outside and waited, and he got a telephone appointment. The GP said that they would refer him to his IBS nurse. A week later, he hadn't heard anything, so he walked down again, managed to speak to the receptionist. When the doctor phoned him, he did get in touch with his IBS nurse, who, when they phoned Kevin, basically took him immediately into hospital. He was found to have high calcium levels, which is indicative of advanced cancer. Basically, he was dead 6 weeks later.
Odette, I know it doesn't get any easier to tell Kevin's story, so thank you again for coming on to tell it, because it's so important for people to understand what families are going through trying to get care on the NHS. And I know that that isn't the only story your family have. Your daughter as well has not had a good experience of the NHS. Again, another familiar picture. Perhaps you can tell us a bit about what happened to her.
Yeah, 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, she broke her leg in 3 places, her leg, ankle and foot. 5-hour wait for the ambulance. Once she got taken to hospital, they, told her there was 3 breaks. They said, you will need surgery. You have to have plates and pins fitted. We will do it in 2 days. Excuse me. They sent her home. She didn't get seen for 5 days. Now they put a cast on her leg. when she went back to go for the surgery, which was nearly a week later, her leg had been so swollen and blistered inside the cast. They said, look, we can't do any surgery. Your skin would never join. There's nothing for at least 2 weeks. So I literally did a 400-mile round trip, brought her to mine. They gave her a cancellation, so we drove back. She was there all day, again, nothing to eat. It was cancelled. And this happened 3 times. They cancelled it. In the end, they said, look, we'll keep you in, because a month had passed. And her leg was actually dangling. There was no support. There was no fixator on it to hold it in place. It took her 6 months to get physio, which was the April the following year. But by then, she said to them, I've no side-to-side movement. Her foot wouldn't go flat. She'd no feeling. Nothing was done. Eventually,
when we spoke last year, Nicola was with you, and I remember her showing me her foot, and she called it her Frankenstein foot.
She called it, yeah, she still does.
And it was all because of delays in treatment and mismanagement of her care. Odette, I wonder how you felt when you saw this report, telling us, as we've discussed, what so many people, so many families like yours already know. And this promise from Sir Keir Starmer to fix it within 10 years, is that realistic? Are you optimistic hearing that?
No, not at all. The problems that they've discussed, which are problems, the ageing population, which is only going to get worse. And obviously, Nikki runs a care home, so she's well aware of that. They're not talking about anything to implement this. A lot of the illnesses people are getting, like diabetes, that's a massive burden on the NHS. And, basically diet has a lot to do with that, with type 2 diabetes. And, the money they're spending on diabetes, a lot of it is for the complications from that, because the people that have conditions aren't getting the care and support they need. And education is needed to change people's awareness of what they're eating and trying to encourage them to have a better life. But it's just, it's going to take years and years and years. And I just don't think it's feasible. He's given no indication how he's going to implement these things.
Yeah, we wait for that 10-year plan. As you mentioned there, Odette, it's about societal change, it's about prevention and lifestyle. Not all of that can fall to the NHS. There are going to have to be some big changes in other areas of government for all of that to come together within a 10-year timeframe. Odette, it was really good to talk to you again. Thank you so much. Please keep in touch. Odette De Freitas there, who has spoken to us on the UK Tonight before about how the NHS failure in care has affected her family. She, of course, lost her son, Kevin.
Thank you.
Well, joining me now in the studio, Roy Lilley, a former NHS Trust chairman, and private GP, Dr. Sahal Hussain. Good evening to you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming in. Roy, I'm going to come to you first, because I know you're going to have a bit to say about this report today. When you read it, when you saw the headlines, the summary of it, what was your initial reaction?
There's nothing new in it. There's nothing that we didn't know. I mean, you could sit down with a manager or a frontline nurse in a canteen in the NHS and they'd have written it for you. I mean, all of what we know has been going wrong in the NHS. I mean, the advantage is it's all in one place. And I suppose it's good to have it sort of authenticated by someone of the standing of the author. But my view is that it doesn't really, as good as it is to have that document and to be able to say, well, Darzai says what we've all been saying.
This is the official recommendation, the official diagnosis.
And the real problem is the flatline funding for 10 years after the World Banking crisis, the Lansley reforms and then COVID, and then actually he didn't mention the strikes, but they didn't help either. So, everything that everyone's been saying has been sort of given the imprimatur of authority. But then the next question is, well, so what? What do we do now? So, we all troop to the King's Fund to listen to the Prime Minister thinking he's going to tell us what he's going to do. And what he's going to do is wait till the spring to write a document that is going to come 10 years into fruition. And, who knows what's going to happen in 10 years' time? You can't write a plan for 10 years. That's 2 parliaments, and goodness knows what's going to happen to the world and the economy. It's a nonsense.
What's going to happen to the people coming through the doors of the NHS?
It's a huge letdown, and the people that really I think should be angry tonight are the people who are on the 7.6 million waiting list, who it appears the only plan that Labour have is to persuade some staff to do a bit of overtime to bring the numbers down. I mean, it's a huge letdown.
I want to make it clear, we're not bashing the NHS tonight. That is not what we're doing. But the NHS needs help. It's broken.
Sure.
Officially, it's broken. That's the headline today. The Prime Minister has said that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it is broken, but I mean, there's a million people that have been looked after today in the NHS, and they'll tell you it isn't broken. And as much as we've heard a desperate story there
are a lot of very good ones as well.
Yes, but I don't want to belittle them.
But there's no standard. There is no standard of care.
I mean,
I think
a lot
we
of
can agree
people
on
have,
that.
a hugely good experience and a lot to be grateful for. But the fact of the matter is, we can't carry on like this. It does need investment in IT, and there's a lot of other things that probably we'll get on and talk about. But where we are now, as of tonight, we're no further forward.
Dr. Hussain, I'd be really interested to get your point of view, because you were an NHS GP.
Yeah.
And this is in your family. Generations of your family have worked within the NHS. Yes. But you decided that it was so bad, you left and you are now a private GP.
Yeah.
GPs are talked about a lot. They are the first point of call for a lot of people with their experience of the NHS when they need help. Why was it so bad that you had to leave?
So there were two main pillars that kind of forced my hand, as it were. So one is the fact that I felt I was not able to provide the care that I really would like to my patients. I was rushed. I had 10-minute appointments. I could only deal with one problem at a time. I never saw the same patient two times in a row. All of the frustrations that we hear voiced by patients themselves. Can't get an appointment, don't have long enough, can't see the same doctor. And I felt this is not appropriate care to provide to people who are ill and suffering. And number two, on the flip side, as a doctor, I felt the stresses and strains that I was under were immense. The amount of work we had to do, essentially a conveyor belt of patients we were forced to see. As we know, recently GPs have said they're going to work to rule. So see only 25. 25 is what they're saying, they're going to see 75. So they have, up until now, been seeing 30, 40, 50 patients a day. Highly unsafe, highly stressful. I have colleagues who have had depression, who've got divorced. I've heard about GPs who've committed suicide. And I've got friends who have left this country for places like Dubai and Qatar, where the lifestyle is fantastic. 10 years ago, we had doctors going to Australia. Again, they're living fantastic lives because they have a fantastic work-life balance. So these two factors together forced my hand to leave a profession that I've been in for 20 years. My father was a GP for 35 years. 5 generations of my family in India, not in this country, have been doctors. So it's in my blood.
You really didn't want to leave the NHS, but presumably for your own health, by the sounds of it, you had to. I'm interested in the fact that your father was a GP, and that's the generation before. So it's not that long an amount of time.
No.
What happened in that period to decimate GP services in this country?
So I remember vividly, he used to have a patient list. It was a named patient list. He'd see the same patients day in, day out. And if I were ever to have to go and see a GP, it would be the same GP. He'd know me, he'd know all about me. He'd not be scrolling through a computer screen saying, OK, you had a hospital appointment 2 weeks ago, let me just check the letter.
He'd know the names of the children or the other family members and what was going on with them,
Absolutely. So that ethos of family care, your family doctor, has been totally lost. And that has been because of the bureaucracy, the unrealistic targets that we've been expected to meet. So when I was doing A&E in 2003, we were told all patients must be seen within 4 hours. An arbitrary target set because the government felt it looked nice on paper. So patients were rushed through A&E, they were taken from the A&E corridor, put in another ward, so they were out of A&E. So all of these targets and impositions and restrictions that look good on paper, again, I think with this report, with no disrespect to Lord Darzai, an established surgeon, in 9 weeks he's put together a report that basically deals with 30 years of disrepair and disregard and frankly, dismantling of the NHS.
And the Prime Minister has given himself 10 years to fix it. Roy, the Prime Minister did say the NHS has to reform or die. The P word, privatisation, I can't even say it. Some people can't even stomach it. But is that what the future of the NHS looks like in some parts, if it is to survive?
Well, there are people who think that they have a sort of neoliberalism agenda, and we're going to go down that road. I don't personally. I don't think so. And I don't think so simply because there's not enough money in it for it. I mean, we've seen Virgin, who came in, you know, all guns blazing, and they've quietly disappeared. Another company called Serco, very good company. They don't do patient-facing services anymore.
So if it's not that, what is it? What is the answer? Because you know, people are saying, where's the money for this 10-year plan? The short answer is there probably isn't going to be any because of the state of the economy at the moment, or the other factors.
Yes, I mean, that's the odd thing about it, isn't it? We were told that part of the reason is there's been no money for 10 years, and now there's going to be no money for another 10 years.
And so Keir Starmer said, you know, to fix it, it's not just going to be about money.
No, but in truth, it isn't. I mean, in terms of revenue, the NHS has more revenue now than it's had for some time. In terms of capital, what we can invest in, that's the important thing. I mean, we've got buildings that are falling down. There's a building in King's Lynn that's being held up by acro props. You know, I mean, Frimley Park is falling over. It's not far away from here. You know, so. The capital programme is the important thing, and if you invest in the capital programme, then you invest in the equipment, and desperately we need to sort out NHS IT. I mean, the last time we tried to sort it out was actually during the last Labour government, and it was a huge mess. But we do need to even just get to the basic sorting out. I was in a hospital not so long ago where a doctor was showing me it took 7 minutes to log in. So you see a patient on the ward. You go to the ward computer, it takes you 7 minutes to log in, put all your stuff in.
The doctor's the same as saying every minute counts.
Then you go and see another patient, it takes another 7 minutes. You see 20 patients, you've got 27 minutes. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that I think we do need the investment in. But I just hope that we don't have another one of these horrendous reorganisations, which, you know, it's very tempting for politicians to do that, and that's the last thing we need. What we really need, if somebody was to say, what would you do, is we need social services sorted out, because that's one of the biggest problems that the NHS has got. We need a period of calm and no reorganisation, and some sensible funding, and leave the NHS alone, because it will sort itself out and the waiting list will come down. The big imperative, I think, from the politicians, and I'm not here to advise the politicians, but in their own best interest, they need to get waiting lists coming down soon so people can see it, because there's winter coming and the waiting lists go up.
OK. Roy Lilley, really good to talk to you. And Dr Sahal Hussain, thank you for coming in to see us tonight to discuss that report out today. Really interesting. Thank you. Still to come here on the programme, sub-postmasters have put the pressure on the new government as they are given a standing ovation at the National Television Awards.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. We aim to be the best and the most trusted place for news.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent. We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
I'm Helen Ann Smith. I'm Sky's Asia correspondent, and I'm based here in Beijing.
We help you understand the world with us. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. Alex Crawford joining us now from Ukraine.
Their personal possessions are all scattered around the place.
Our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, try and make sense of the big numbers for us.
Things can change incredibly quickly, and that's what they have done.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty? I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Welcome back. Now, sub-postmasters wrongly convicted in the Horizon IT scandal called out the new government over its lack of action last night. They were at the National Television Awards, where the ITV drama about the scandal was one of the night's big winners. And the real sub-postmasters behind the story took to the stage to accept the award, with Joe Hamilton laying down the gauntlet and telling Sir Keir Starmer's government to get real on compensation.
Out of the group of 555, more than 300 haven't been paid yet, including Sir Alan Bates. They've offered him 30% of his claim. So he has a plan. So when he comes back to the nation for help, please be there to support him.
Well, a huge standing ovation last night, and I'm joined now by Noel Thomas, a former sub-postmaster who was wrongfully convicted. He was at the NTAs last night with his family. Noel, good of you to come on to speak to us, because that big win last night has put this scandal back on the news agenda, and that's where you want it to stay, right?
Yes, definitely. Not for myself, but as Joe Hamilton said, there's many, many more of us in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, England as well. We're all over the country. And we've had 4 governments as part of my story. I go back to 2005. And, you know, it's just dragged on from one party to the other.
Well, there's a new government now, and Joe Hamilton called them out last night and said nothing's changed. She's met with the new business minister responsible for, you know, this remit, the post office scandal. She says nothing's changed. What made her say that? What word are you getting from the government about this scandal?
Well, as far as I know, I'm only learning secondhand, to be quite honest with you. What Joe said is quite right, because as we've been cleared nearly 4 years ago, we've had 2 trials before that, and we've been exonerated. And this thing is dragging on. And don't forget, it's the taxpayer that's paying for this. And most of the money seems to be going to the big lawyers in London. I felt like going and knocking on their doors yesterday, actually, and asking what they're doing.
It's worth reminding viewers of what you went through. You spent your 60th birthday in prison for false accounting. This was back in 2006, because you were accused of basically nicking 48 grand, which you didn't. What kind of toll did that take on you? Because, you know, it must be a bit of a headspin to go through all of that and then find yourself on the stage at the NTAs last night.
Well, it is. It's a big story, isn't it, if you know what I mean? I was lucky. I've had my health. I've had good backup. My family, my friends. I live where I do, the beautiful island of Anglesey, and I've been able to go. And believe me, the way I coped with it was going out on my own and walking. And I was lucky enough to get 2 jobs. And I must say, because I did go to work, the post office are punishing me for that. I would have been better off staying at home regarding the compensation, actually.
Oh, well, listen, Noel, thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about this. Keep the pressure up on the new government. I understand that you've got a meeting in, have you?
So I believe, I haven't heard when or where. I believe it's a fellow Welshman. I hope he will treat me as a Welshman and my friends a hell of a lot better than the rest of them have done.
No, well, look, you don't know when or where, but one thing's for sure, you'll be there. Noel, thank you very much. Noel Thomas, former sub-postmaster, wrongfully convicted.
You're welcome. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Keeping this story on the news agenda. We'll catch up soon, Noel. Thank you. Still to come here on the programme, a 12-year-old boy killed in a hit and run and an international manhunt for the suspected driver. I'm going to be joined in the studio by Keaton Slaters' parents and his brother. Now, an international manhunt has been launched to find the suspect in the hit-and-run death of a 12-year-old boy. Keaton Slaters was killed in Coventry in June. He was hit by a black BMW while he walked home from school. The driver did not stop, and Keaton's parents say the car was being driven at more than double the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Dollars Alexanders was quickly named by police as the suspect in Keaton's death, but he's now believed to have fled the country and may have gone home to Latvia. Crime Stoppers has issued a £10,000 reward for any information that leads to Alexander's arrest. And a petition has been set up by Keaton's parents calling for the suspect's extradition. It's been signed by more than 60,000 people. I'm joined now tonight in the studio by Keaton's mum, Louise, his dad, Clint, and his brother, Kai.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for coming in to talk to us about this. I know it's really difficult, so let's just take it slow. Louise, what do we know about what happened to the man you believe killed your son?
We don't know much. That's why we've gone ourselves to take it further, because the police have been informing us of little simple things, like they said they know where he is, but they're not allowed to tell us, and that was 2 months ago. So to us as a family, to know where he is, you'd think he'd be, you know, in custody, but no, nothing. So we've had nothing. So as a family, we've thought to ourselves, how can we take this further? Because we have messages from, like, further beyond saying he may be in Latvia. We don't know for sure, but his family are from Latvia. So we said, right, what can we do as a family to take this further ourselves? Because we don't feel we're getting much help. So like my husband said, go on to change.org and get a petition together. And then if we get 100,000, and then we can go to the government, the parliament, and get him extradited. And if he isn't there, then that's fine. We can, but I won't stop till we get justice. And if he is there, because he's in an EU country, that's why we have to get this petition signed. So that's what we're asking for people to get this. Oh no, sorry.
It's all right.
Get this.
Take your time. It's okay. Get
this form done so we can get justice for my son. Because basically, he was going 80 miles an hour, and it's saying to people that it's acceptable to drive that fast. We don't want another family to go through what we're going through as a whole family. And then, Nan and Grandad and his cousins, it's just like heartbreaking for all of us to think, like, someone else is going to do it to another family.
Heartbreaking enough to lose your boy, Clint.
Yes.
But to have to go through this as a family, what kind of toll is that taking on you? Because
a lot,
you would
really.
think that the police would be doing the work that you're doing.
Yeah, quite a bit, really. It's taking a toll on all of us, really. But obviously, trying to keep strong to like, get the message out there.
That's what
try
we
and
do.
get him caught, basically. Make him serve his time. It's keeping us together a bit, giving us something to do.
It's strength, yeah.
Kai, can you tell me about your brother? Can you tell me about Keaton?
Yeah, he was always like, he always used to like joke around with us, and like, he would always like have a laugh around the family, and
You miss it big time, don't you?
yeah,
Massive Coventry City fan as well. I see you both representing
yeah.
your team tonight on his behalf.
Definitely.
Can you take me back to when you found out what happened to Keaton?
Just didn't seem real.
It didn't for a few days. You think he's going to run back in. You know, he's been camping or he's been at a football club, or, and you just still expecting him to walk in the door and say, "I'm back."
Still feel like that now.
It just doesn't it? Yeah. It doesn't seem surreal. And the lack of the police. That's why I think it's sometimes you wake up, because every day's like Groundhog Day. You wake up like numb, and you keep thinking, right, he's going to walk for the door. And because of the lack of the communication with the police, like 2 months ago, we got a text last week just to say that the CPS had got enough evidence to take this criminal further. But to us, it's not what the police aren't saying to us where he is. You know, so to us, it's like, right, they've got enough evidence, but without the criminal, what's that going to do? It's just like...
And Clint, you want to keep the pressure up, don't you? You want to keep this story at the front of people's minds, get people to sign the petition.
Yeah.
Keep the pressure on the police as well, because obviously they will be doing what they can, and they say they are doing everything they can.
Yeah.
They're obviously working hard, like, behind the scenes, but it doesn't seem like it.
When they're not communicating, it's...
But they obviously can't tell us everything. They're not allowed to until they've got it concrete. That's why we've gone on our own backs to get that petition signed, get the petition up and running. So, like, obviously need 100,000 signatures for the government to actually sit there and take note of it. So we're nearly there. Just need a lot more signatures.
What's so frustrating is the little girl, Isabella, she died a couple of years before on the same road from a hit and run. And she was younger than... Was she younger than Keaton? So they tried to put things in place, and it just doesn't feel like, you know, like another family are going to go through this again because of what we're going through. It's just frustrating.
And Keaton was on his way home from school. This is a road you use every day.
And the primary school, nurseries, and there's so many secondary schools on that road. I mean, luckily, the MP has come to us and said that it's so easy to extradite someone. We've gone farther afield to America to extradite, and they said, like, we can do the roads, we can do everything to support. So it just seemed a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel that they're going to be there to support us, but...
Kai, you can see your parents going through this. They're motivated. They want signatures on a petition. This is keeping them going. How old are you, 14?
Yeah.
How are you coping with all of this?
I'm doing good, and I'm just here for my parents. Because we're all going through the same thing.
You are.
You're amazing. You really are truly amazing.
You've got to concentrate on school now, haven't you?
Yeah.
And how tough is that as a family? Because, like you said, there's this fight for justice. The man suspected of killing Keaton by dangerous driving is still at large. What is that like to live with day to day?
It's hard because, like, there's people, like, that text us about it and ask us a lot. And
so every day's a reminder when people come
you
talk to you.
can't grieve when this is going on. So we get sad over Keaton and then we get angry over the justice has to be served. Like Coventry as a community, they've been so supportive and they're truly amazing. And like the one monster compared to all these amazing people. And it's like justice hasn't been served, so we get upset as a family over Keaton because we never get to see him go 13, 14, you know, have his first drink, go to college and uni. He wanted to be a famous footballer. And we won't never get to see that. And this monster's still alive, and his family is sitting there. They live up the road from us, apparently. And they're sitting there. Why can't his siblings or his mum and dad say, look, just do your time, justice, please. So I can prove to my family that justice can become... Britain can be, a criminal, but we can sort criminals out. But at the minute, it just doesn't feel like it.
Kai, does it make you angry?
Yeah, but he's still not been caught.
Yeah. And when you say people are texting you all the time, presumably these are people offering support, but also, again, asking the question that you are is why? Why hasn't he been caught? Why isn't this moving quicker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of how you want people to think of Keaton, because, we'll say if people head to change.org, they can find your petition on there, extradite Dollars Alexander from Latvia for justice. If you want them to go to that petition, how do you want them to think of Keaton as they're seeking out this link? Because
justice has to be served, doesn't it?
For Keaton. I mean, everyone who knew him, they loved him.
And I also said if Keaton had got through this for just an injury, he'd sat on the sofa saying, Mum, have you found him yet? If it was his friends that had been hit, not him, he would say, look, Mum, you need to get, this person. He was so, enthusiastic and vibrant. He loved life. And if he had a choice, he wouldn't have died. So...
He was just coming home from school.
Exactly, and he had so much excitement because he loved football and he was just he's passionate about life. And for someone to take that away and then for us to sit there in limbo, no, and the whole family. Yeah. So, we just want people to sign it and say, with justice, we can prove that Britain can serve justice to criminals.
OK. Well, listen, thank you for coming in to talk to us. I really appreciate it. I know it is not easy.
No, but thank you.
But you're doing this on behalf of Keaton. And Kai, I know you said you're looking after your mum and dad, but look after each other, OK?
Definitely,
yeah?
Thank you.
All right, thank you for coming. Again, head to change.org. I'll put the petition out on social media for you as well so people can find it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck, thank you. Well, West Midlands Police are the force helping the Slater family. The service says it is actively pursuing strong lines of inquiry about the whereabouts of Dollars Alexander's. A spokesperson saying our focus remains on getting justice for Keaton and his family as soon as we possibly can. We hope to have an update for you on that story at some point here on Sky News. We'll bring it to you first. Coming up on the UK tonight, life is to be celebrated. We'll bring you the words of Sven-Göran Eriksson in his final newspaper column that has been published on the eve of his funeral. And there's news in Manchester City's hearing into the 115 alleged breaches of financial rules.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Our street! Our street!
Well, the plan seems to be to head to the police station where the policeman who fired the shots was based.
And everything his memories is all gone.
In almost every corner, this town has been completely destroyed by the fire. I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
Trump out of the White House.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
It's easy to go to politics.
But it's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
I get that that's where the media likes to go.
Well, it's not. It's where many of the people we've talked to here like to go.
I report on the biggest stories from around the world.
This is a town that is effectively encircled by the Russians. You say it's all fabrication, what's happening in Bucha?
Destroyed my nation.
We take you to the heart of stories that shape our planet. Yeah, I can hear now quite a few explosions in the distance here in Jerusalem. A very violent series of confrontations here. What do you think of ISIS?
Everybody here knows the truth of ISIS.
I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
We can reveal that the driver who hit Harry Dunn is 42-year-old Anne Sakoulas.
Just met the president and we never thought we'd get this far.
This is what they're up against, is back-breaking work. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
It's really scary.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Hello, welcome back. Coming up, Sven-Göran Eriksson's final message to fans in his last newspaper column. That's on the way. But first, Teddy is here with the sport. And the big breaking news today has come from Manchester City, hasn't it? And I'm not talking about their new kit.
Definitely City.
Yeah, I liked it. But anyway, enough about that. We're talking about financial irregularities,
yes,
which is very complicated. So you're going to talk us through it.
Well, the news that's broke today is we're hopefully going to get a resolution in the next few months. You remember in February 2023, so just over 18 months ago now, the Premier League charged Manchester City with breaches of their financial regulations, 115 of them. Goes back away even before that, though, back to 2009 to 2018, a 9-year period. So lots of ground to cover. Manchester City have always strenuously denied any wrongdoing, that they've been within the rules from their perspective. But it's a 9-year period that was foundational for the team, which is now the most dominant force in the Premier League and probably alongside Real Madrid, the most dominant force in Europe. Won 3 Premier League titles in that spell between 2009 and 2018. But there will be an independent hearing beginning on Monday at an undisclosed location.
It's been hanging over City for quite a while now, hasn't it? And as you said, it dates back a significant period. When are we expecting a result from this hearing? When can we reach a conclusion? Because that's what all the fans will want to know.
Yeah, hopefully there is an imminent resolution, but it's not completely clear when it'll be. Spring 2025, so next year is what we're hearing. Originally, we thought this was going to be around November, so it's been brought forward, hopefully with clarity before the end of this season. Manchester City currently top of the table on goal difference from Liverpool after another sensational start under Pep Guardiola. There's some speculation, though, that it could be a little bit later in 2025. We understand both parties are predicting it will be done and dusted by this time next year. There'll be a resolution. So optimistic there on Manchester City's front in terms of clarity. Big news for Arsenal, meanwhile. Runners-up from last season off the field. Tell you about that in just a second.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
May 2022, you described the one-day job as too cushy to contemplate. What's changed?
Look, I think firstly, I was very content doing what I was doing in terms of helping Stokesy run the test side. We've had a great couple of years, so I think we've achieved some pretty cool stuff, even though we're not the finished article yet. But when Kezi rang me and said, "Is there a world in which you can do it all?" It didn't take a whole lot of persuading, to be honest, because I think back then, I didn't have a lot of information about English cricket. I felt at the time that white ball team was in a very good space, and they were obviously being very successful. And my skills are normally more towards trying to rejuvenate a side and try and bring about some soul and some structure of how you want to play the game. I guess you fast forward.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Now, Sven-Göran Eriksson used his final newspaper column to urge people to always celebrate life. The former England manager died of cancer last month, and his family have allowed the Daily Telegraph to publish his last column ahead of his funeral tomorrow. Sven wrote this. Writing a piece about death, of course, makes you reflective. Everything went too quickly. Where did life go? But one thought always comes to the front of my mind. It has been a dream. One of the best jobs you can have in the world is to be a football manager. I can tell you this, I have never woken up in the morning and felt, oh no, I have to go to work again. He ended the column by saying, I've cried a lot over the past few months. They have been happy tears mostly. I would like people to remember me as a decent coach who tried to do his best. I hope they enjoyed me being their manager. My message to everyone would be, don't give up. Never give up. Do not give up is my message for life. And please don't forget this. Life is always, always to be celebrated. Well, that's all from the UK tonight. We will see you next week. We'll be back on Monday night at 8 o'clock. Take care.